What's up, everybody? Thanks for coming back to the channel and checking it out. Today, breaking down the next lake for our tournaments for the Space Coast Bass Fanatics. That lake happens to be one of the most popular lakes in the state of Florida, West Lake Tohopekaliga. West Lake Toho, Lake Toho, Big Toho, all names for it. This body of water has been legendary for years. This body of water is the one that produced one of the largest single-day 5-fish limit bags in 2001 during a BASS Top 150 tournament, which I think basically became the Elite Series. Dean Rojas weighed in 5 fish totaling 45.2 pounds. That's a monster bag of fish. Every year, tournaments are won between BASS Opens and many different large tournaments, all the way down to local tournaments. Many 30-plus pound bags of fish are taken to win these tournaments different times of the year. It's a very diverse lake, much like Lake Kissimmee that I broke down before. You have a lot of the opportunities, the layers of vegetation as it gets closer to the shoreline. The lake is 2,700 acres. Big body of water. To the upper east side of the lake, you have the St. Cloud Canal, which is the remnants of the old Kissimmee River, flowing into Lake Toho from East Lake Toho. Again, it's water controlled, so they control when the water is flowing, when it's not flowing, and so forth. On the western shoreline, you have a couple creeks, the biggest one being Shingle Creek. Shingle Creek is still a natural flowing creek without any restriction, and the water flows into the top half of the lake from Shingle Creek, coming throughout in the middle of Lake Kissimmee itself and some of the surrounding neighborhoods. The lake itself offers, again, a lot of different opportunities for different fishing styles. One of the more popular styles of fishing lately has been offshore. You have large beds of hydrilla mixed in throughout the lake. Middle of summertime, you can, any given Saturday or Sunday, come running across the lake and you'll see 3, 4, 5, 6 boats circled around in the middle of the water. And what it is they're on one of these very large beds of hydrilla. A lot of the shell beds are kind of underneath it. They share the same ground with the hydrilla, and it just basically creates its own ecosystem inside and underneath this hydrilla. As the summer goes on, the hydrilla grows all the way up and tops off and starts to fold over, creating these large pockets underneath it. A lot of people like to punch through these mats of hydrilla into the pockets below, where they find willing and hungry fish ready to take their bait. Again, the shoreline has a lot of vegetation with layers of Kissimmee grass, lily pads, everything going up to your reed-lined actual shoreline. Offers a lot of different spawning opportunities for the bass. Going through it all gives you a wide range of different styles and everything to cover. There are a few neighborhoods surrounding the lakes with docks and so forth. A lot of people like to work and fish around docks, but I would say most of all the offshore bite seems to be the most popular. I do believe with this tournament here in the middle of December, we should expect, depending on the weather patterns leading up to it, we should expect a look at some pre-spawn fish, some fish that are starting to move up and looking for where they're going to spawn. I've talked to people that have caught fish and so forth and seen the areas. A lot of these fish are adapting because of some of the mucky areas that have been created by spraying vegetation and dying vegetation, as well as tilapia that seem to bed in the same areas that were predominantly bass. A lot of these bass are starting to make their beds in deeper water pockets, where they'll hollow out a pocket in the middle of the hydrilla in 5+ foot of water, and they'll do their spawn there. Obviously, it's working because the bass population, again, it takes a pretty good sized bag of fish to compete on any given Saturday or Sunday out of this lake. The patterns are very much dictated because, again, it's a shallow bowl type natural formed lake. Winds and wind changes, direction changes, all affect everything from top to bottom of this lake. And of course, in December for us, a lot of these cold fronts or weather fronts, we don't get a whole lot of cold weather out of them, especially in December, but the pressure is going up and down in these rainy days, and then the pressure going way up, dropping down again, back and forth. It can change day to day what these fish are doing, where they're located. So a lot of your early practices for a tournament, such as what I have coming up, are best spent looking at spots, trying to find where the fish are today, but not getting locked into, okay, this is where I'm going. You're going to have to look elsewhere depending on what the weather's done. That week of the tournament, you got to watch the weather all the way through, and you're going to get your best idea knowing, okay, the fish were here, and this weather's done this wind's going to be doing this, and they're probably going to be here, because they're most likely not going to be in the same spot. They get scattered this time of year and they start spreading around. But again, the one common thing is they are starting to group up looking to spawn. The biggest spawn usually is not until January, February, but in the state of Florida, in this area of Florida, they have found spawning fish almost year-round. And December is usually one of the heavier months as it starts to get into it. The water temperatures have come down. Everything's starting to kick off. Really looking forward to this tournament. Should be an exciting tournament. Let me show you around the lake on the map a little bit and see what you think. Again, thanks for checking out the channel. Back to the Kissimmee chains of lakes for Lake Tohopekaliga, West Lake Toho, Big Toho. Most people just call it Lake Toho, around here anyways. So as you can see at the top, you had East Lake, which is where we started our tournament series this year with the Space Coast Bass Fanatics. We had our tournament on Lake Kissimmee. I covered Lake Kissimmee, Lake Hatchnahaw, and Lake Cypress for you. I had not covered West Lake Toho yet. It has very large, diverse areas of vegetation surrounding the edges of the lake that are in layers, going from your deeper water areas all the way up to the shore, with your different canals and cuts and trails through the thicker vegetation. There are multiple public boat ramps around the area. The main boat ramp that most of your larger tournaments, our tournament group, will use and everything is up at this northwest corner called Big Toho Marine. It's a very large basin. You have multiple boat ramps, a lot of docking, and any given Saturday and Sunday, you're going to have multiple tournaments going out of this boat ramp alone. One of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that Toho is known for is its offshore fishing. The offshore fishing, again, is basically you're out in the middle of what seems to be just open water with your back turned towards the shore, and you're going to find the fish in the pockets as I described. These pockets sometimes show up really good, as you can see in here on your satellite imaging. But then again, you can even get out in some of these edges and start to zoom in, and you can see the different pockets of vegetation that show through on the satellite image. I'm going to take you on a ring around the lake just to give you some of the ideas. Again, your starting point right here at Big Toho. So if you go back towards the east and along the top, you have a large cove up in here that offers, again, a lot of the diverse vegetation. A lot of the stuff you see, there's still a lot of it just underneath the water that you don't really see. You can see a little bit here as you start really zooming in. You can notice some of it down in there, in pockets and so forth. As you work towards the shoreline, you're going to get pockets of lily pads and hyacinths and reeds and sesame grass going up in through everything. You start down that eastern shoreline, you have some neighborhoods that again have docks, as many neighborhoods will. A lot of people like to fish docks. They're there for the taking. Again, more of your grass is just out in what would normally be open water coming through. Again, your neighborhoods in through this cove here. You have multiple islands such as Grassy Island, and you can see again the rings of vegetation around Grassy Island. A lot of the islands as well as the shoreline have a lot of very popular spawning grounds. So again, depending on what phase the fish are in, again, 2 more islands. You can see the boat cuts and so forth through the middle of these where boats run. Just give you a size option. Of course, you see a couple boats here running down through here past Paradise Island. Sticking on this shoreline here, you got a little cove coming down. Again, there's another little neighborhood here. Then you come down towards the mouth of what is called Goblet's Cove. This mass vegetation hiding a small island comes back in. Again, most of this water is very filled with hydrilla. You can kind of see some of the shading in the offshore areas. The key feature for this would be the St. Cloud Canal, which is a straight cut remnant of what used to be the Kissimmee River. This canal runs up between East Lake Toho and Lake Toho, or West Lake Toho. This does have a water control gate. This does not have a lock system. So at this point right here, you cannot traverse between lakes by boat. You can make it all the way up to this point if you so choose, running into this canal. The water will flow when they deem it. It'll flow out of East Lake Toho, down through the canal, into this area here. Because of the way the land is formed, the flow comes around this point, out through these grasses here, and joining the rest of the water flow as it flows south through the lake. Again, these big open areas seem like open water, but you can come, especially in the late summertime, on any given point, there'll be a large field around through there of hydrilla that's topped out, and you'll see 3, 4, 5 boats surrounding a multiple 5-10 acre area, and that's because there's a lot of hydrilla grass there that they have found. Under the water, you have a lot of shell beds in different areas. A lot of them are marked. A lot of people find some and don't share them. That's again where your electronics are going to come into play. The shell beds combined with the hydrilla really makes a nice home. Again, if you can find the hydrilla mixed with pepper grass or eelgrass, you really are onto a pretty good location, because between the bait fish and the bass, they all seem to find a little home that they're happy with. As you continue on down towards the south end of the lake, you've got this long, narrower area here that bends around almost into a circular type lake. You have another boat ramp up here, very popular, but it's a very small ramp, so a lot of bigger places don't use it. Off of here, you have another little cove. You have a canal that runs in and flows water into it, and again, this water is going to ultimately flow in this direction towards the bottom of the lake. Again, this satellite imagery shows you very clear one of the large offshore hydrilla beds. These big offshore beds of the hydrilla will have other vegetation in, but they basically make their own ecosystem just out in the middle of the lake. The fish get in it, underneath it, these large pockets that are formed by the way the hydrilla grows and flows over. Bait fish can get in and out of it. Basically, it's just its own little bass city. Again, your Southport Canal, transport you. This one does have a lock system. If you want to wait and go through, you can access down to Lake Cypress, through to Lake Hatchnahaw, and then on all the way down into Lake Kissimmee. The next lock would not be till you got on the other side of Lake Kissimmee going south towards Lake Okeechobee. There are few people that prefer to fish in Hatchnahaw and Cypress or even Kissimmee. They will make the runs. Again, from here to here, Cypress, down to Hatchnahaw, and then Kissimmee. I will be concentrating on Toho because it just has so much to offer. Going through it all again with your different layers of vegetation. This really shows and highlights it for you. You can see how it is. Most of these outer edges are going to be in 5, 6, 7 foot of water. Again, going up to your 2 foot depths as it gets close to the shoreline. You have another Southport boat ramp. This is a bigger boat ramp and parking area. Also very popular for a lot of bass tournaments going out of that end of the lake as well. Going back up on now the east side of the lake, again, you have these large vegetation areas, even out in the middle of that. The hydrilla, very big combinations of everything. This particular spot is called Brown's Point. It has this point coming out, then an island broke off of it. So you get between the offshore and the near shore, moving up, a lot of good spawning areas. Again, you'll go through Kissimmee grass to get through a layer of lily pads and reeds, and just the different pockets of all the different vegetations that are offered on this lake can be found in small grouping areas. As you continue heading up this western shoreline, you have a couple of canal accesses into neighborhoods. Of course, they're going to have your docks and so forth. I have never been up in any of those. I'm not sure how well people do up in there. Maybe something we look to find out. Again, I've surrounded the whole lake. As you go up, you can see the just different offshore vegetations and so forth. Between the islands and the mainland, again, you get a lot of thick vegetation. I've been through some of these areas, and to look at it, it's not quite topped out, so you don't really notice it, but you're running and you can just hear the drag on your outboard motor as you go across some of this, knowing you're going through some really thick vegetation. As long as you stay up on plane and keep the water flowing, it's usually not a problem. As you can see, the cuts all the boats have been making running through there. Again, just a lot of very diverse. You also have a, in the middle of this doesn't seem to show that quite as good, but going across through here is a set of power lines bringing power out to this island. And the pilings around that, and again, you can see all the vegetation that just surrounds the area just out in the middle. As you continue up this side on the western shoreline, again, a lot of the same stuff, just the heavy vegetation comes up, and you come up to Shingle Creek, the little island out in front of Shingle Creek. This is a still natural flowing creek. It gathers water from up inside Kissimmee, going well out to the west and back up to the north, as it then continues and it flows into the upper section here of Lake Toho, bringing in fresh water from out through there. And again, back to your Mackinson, Paradise Island, Grassy Island, as you come back up to the north where Big Toho Marine is. So really, again, with everything that the lake offers, it is one of those lakes that you put in at one of the boat ramps, ease out of the boat ramp area, and you can kind of start fishing. So it's a lot of water to break down, a lot of very good water. Mostly it's going to be finding the right pattern, I believe, and what the fish are doing that day. Again, with all the different fronts and weather conditions that we're going to have coming through in December, and constant changes, makes it difficult. to keep on track of where the fish are going to be any given day. Hope this gives you a good idea of what you're looking at as far as running around on Lake Toho and catching some fish. Again, a lot of opportunities to fit your fishing style. Nothing is right, nothing is wrong. The main thing you got to do is find the bait. You'll find the fish, put the hook in them, put them in the boat. Okay, so there's a general breakdown of Lake Toho, West Lake Toho, Lake Tohopekaliga. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share the video. If you have any questions, please comment below. Ask the questions. I'll try and fill in any details that I have missed or anything for you about the lake, the body of water itself, or what we're going to try and do this time of year. Also, anyone looking to have some fun with a local bass club, Space Coast Bass Fanatics, always looking for a few new members. Give us a shout. Take a look at it. Again, tell me what you think about this video, and if you have any questions, please comment below. Thanks.